the water. And in a minute you're going to see quite a lot of high places that were made by water. And water formed an awful lot of the gorge, in fact, even the lower parts here. There used to be a river, the road that was pulling out, things made in the gorge, still some industry here today. For example, there's cheddar cheese that's still made here, and you just come up to the factory on your left-hand side here. We've got a glass blower shop at near West Cave, and there's also a really nice sweet maker's shop where they make the sweets in Pennsylvania. And that's the little white building that you can see off behind the trees over there on the left. It's well worth a visit later. And you'll notice that all the industry around here today is really based around tourism. Now the mills that used to be up here were run by the River Yo, which is that river that's down on your left-hand side there. And one of the mills that's still standing today is this big yellow building over here on the left in front. That's Cox's mill, and that was George Cox that owned that, and he was the chap that discovered the cave. I'll show you that in a minute. On the right, you just pass the entrance to Jacob's Ladder. There's 274 steps up to the top of the gorge, and there's a lookout tower at the top that will give you really good views here today. Now, George Cox was looking for the Cox's coast in Carriage about 150 years ago, and he found Cox's cave just past on the right.
You have to bear with me while I shout for this next bit. One of our residents is ill and the microphone echoes and disturbs them. Look up there on the left, you can see Lion's Rock. We call it Lion's Rock because we think it looks like a lion lying down. It used to have a much more prominent nose on it, but that fell off a few years ago.
Back online now. Just past the tourist information office on your right-hand side, and we're coming up to God's Cave here, and this is where we're going to stop on the way back down. Give Annie away with the front there, show you're having a good time. Now, God's Cave goes back a quarter of a mile inside the rock face. Lovely and cool in there today. And Cheddar Man used to live there 9,000 years ago. Cheddar Man is a skeleton that was discovered about 98 years ago now. And he lived in that cave entrance. And we know that people have lived in the caves up and down the gorge for many thousands of years. In fact, right up until recently when the First World War broke out, this cave up on the left was occupied. And that's called Pride Evans Hole. And Pride Evans was a local eccentric, and he used to round up all the local stray animals and sell them back to the farmers at a profit. And they used stray in the most loose sense of the word. I believe he wasn't unknown to nip them out of the fields and then sell them back as well. Now the gorge that you're in now, the proper gorge, this was all formed by water. It was actually formed by meltwater from the glaciers. Every time the glaciers melted during the Ice Age, all the water would come this way, and all the weaknesses all cracked in the limestone, it would pop down through, and it eventually made this gorge. Imagine it's full of water, and that's how it was been for much of the last million years or so. On the right, this is high rock. And it's so called because it's high, and it's made of rock, and in fact it's 400 feet high, with Britain's tallest vertical inland cliff. Very impressive. Just around the corner here, we're going to come up against Priest Rock, and that was where a bit of a local legend happened about 1,000 years ago. This is Priest Rock. King Edmund was out hunting in the 10th century, and he was chasing a stag, and the stag ran off the top of the cliff, and King Edmund's horse nearly went with it. But King Edmund's life was saved by a priest that was out hunting with him called Dunstan, who yanked the king back and saved his life. And the king was so pleased with Dunstan, he made him abbot of Glastonbury, and he blessed that rock, hence the name. And Dunstan later went on and became Archbishop of Canterbury, and then was sainted after a fight with the devil, so the story goes anyway. Right now we're in the Horseshoe Rock, the Horseshoe Games rather, and in front of you up there, those are the pinnacles, also known as the Three Sisters. They're 450 feet high at the tallest, and if you look closely, you might see we've got some peregrine falcons nesting up there, as well as some ravens. Now, if the bus doesn't make it at that bit, we might need to go out and push, as if you read the small print on your ticket. If you look up onto the right, you can see there's quite a lot of netting up there, and that's there for protection. Remember I said limestone have lots of cracks in it? Well, that means that we're in danger of rocks falling down. Now what we do once a year is we actually shut the gorge down and get rid of all the loose rock, but then we have the net in there just in case, particularly on these very exposed parts. We're coming up to the turning circle now where we turn round, otherwise we'd end up in Bath. And I can show you some of our famous snowy sheep down here on the right. I know they look like goats, but they are sheep. They're the sheep that were originally indigenous to the UK. They come from the northwest coast of Scotland. and they do a really good job of keeping all vegetation down in the gorge here. And you do have to be careful as you're driving up and down the gorge, because they like to lick the salt in the road. And because they're licking the salt in the road, they're completely oblivious to the cars and the buses that are going up and down here. So you have to be really careful you don't come round a corner and find a sheep. In fact, a few years ago, a guide nearly got lost over the front of the bus when the driver had to brake sharply, and we dropped the guide nearly way over the front now. So I'm hanging on tight today. Now, if you look onto your left-hand side, all of this land here is owned by Cheddar Gorge, and we're owned by Lord Bath. He's our boss, the chap that owns Longley. And we look after all of this side of the gorge. And on the right-hand side of the gorge, that's all maintained by the National Trust. They look after that. And if you fancy doing our gorge walk, 3 miles long, goes all the way along the top there, then you cross over the road and come back on this side. And that's about 3 miles. It will take you just a couple of hours to walk that. Take some water with you on a day like today, because it's very, very hot up there. Now we came back down to the narrowest part of the gorge here. If you're not going to reach your hands out and touch the side of the gorge, and I wouldn't recommend it, you might lose your finger on a sharp rock. As you come round this corner, if you look ahead of you, you can see how the rock strata is at an angle. And that's all carboniferous limestone that the whole gorge is made from, and that was formed at the bottom of the sea about 300 million years ago. And as the Earth's plates have moved, it's all got shunted up to make the hills, and that's why it's on a slope. And when you walk into Goss Cave, you're actually walking up the line of one of those bedding planes at that slope. Now I'm stopping here very briefly to allow you to look out the camera and take a picture of High Rock, and possibly also that big crack that runs at the corner there. Now it's a really famous mountaineering climb. It was first climbed by Chris Bonington back in 1966, and it's called Coronation Street. Now, Chris Bonington obviously knew what he was talking about, because that's a really long climb. It takes a good climb about 4 hours to climb up. It's a bit like the TV series, really. It goes on and on and on and on. It's an E1 climb, if you know anything about these things. To you and me, that means very, 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 very hard. If you look over onto the right, you can see our quarry house, shut down quarry. There's still a couple of quarries over the other side of the hill, and they again provide a lot of local employment along with tourism and for agriculture. Those are along with quarrying and big employers around here. Now, when Chris Bonington climbed Coronation Street back in the 60s, he had a TV crew with him, and we do attract quite a lot of TV attention. If you ever watch Casualty, you might have seen there's an episode where a car nearly went off the top of a cliff, and that was also filmed here at the gorge. We also had Tony Robinson and his time team here a couple of years ago, and they were down just behind the cars here in Cooper's Hole. And they were hoping they might find the entrance to the caves, the river caves that go underneath the Goss Cave. They didn't find that, it's all blocked up with silt. They found a few crisp packets though. They were looking to find of ancient man really, so it wasn't really such a successful dig. On the left here, this is our abseiling wall. If you feel energetic, you can sign up and go climbing and abseiling later. And if you like crawling around in small muddy holes, then caving trips might be your thing. And you can